Ahoy and welcome back to my channel. Ahoy! I don't know why I went with ahoy there. It was a choice, wasn't it? I quite like it. We might keep it. Ahoy! And welcome back to my channel. I am Alison. I write as Alison May, 50% of Juliet Bell, and most recently as Ali Sinclair. In addition to that, I also run writing courses and mentoring and one-to-one coaching and mentoring for writers. And I talk here on YouTube about all things writing and publishing. We've just come back from a little summer break. I've had a little holiday. I went to the Isle of Skye, I went to the Edinburgh Fringe, lovely time, but now we are back at our desk, back to work, back trying to kick the novel in progress into shape and back to YouTube. And I have a question that's come in while I was on a break over the summer, and we're going to try and answer that question today. So this was a comment on a previous video, and the question is this. I have a friend, asking for a friend, who wants to write but says that they don't like having to explain themselves to people, and if they have an editor or agent asking them to clarify something in their manuscript or to change anything, then they feel like they shouldn't have to, because at the end of the day it's their story. And they're asking what advice I would give. So this is an interesting one, and it's actually quite a kind of common query, is that feeling that cough break. We're going to pause. I'll be right back with you. Here we go. So it's quite common, that feeling that an editor or an agent looking at your manuscript and making comments and making changes is interfering in some way, is getting in the way of your kind of artistic vision, is taking away your ownership of the novel, all of those things. And those are perfectly reasonable things to be concerned about. Ultimately, if you publish a book, it's going to be your name or your pen name on the cover, and you're the person who readers are going to associate with that novel. So you want to feel proud of the contents of that book. I'm just going to angle my camera down a teeny bit because I feel a little bit like I'm sort of in the bottom of the frame. That's slightly better. We'll work with it. And those are completely reasonable things to be concerned about. So the first question that I would ask someone who came to me with this concern would simply be, who are you writing for? If you are writing primarily for yourself, for the joy it brings you, for the feeling of creativity, for the joy of creating something that is uniquely you, and it's fundamentally just for you, and that is a perfectly legitimate reason to be writing, then you absolutely can say, I don't want anyone else interfering with this. This is just for me. It's my thing. It's mine alone. You don't even have to publish that thing. You may not want to publish that thing if you are writing solely for yourself. Lots of people do things like journaling and morning pages. They might write memoirs. They might write about their own lives. And those writings are only ever intended to be for their own satisfaction, for their own catharsis, for their own reflection, and that is perfectly fine. So one answer to that question, who you're writing for, might be, I'm just writing for me. The other answer is that you're writing for readers, whether you have a particular readership in mind or whether you haven't kind of clarified that, but you know you want to put your stuff out there and you want to make a connection with the person reading it, then the answer to that question, who are you writing for, is going to be, I'm writing for a reader. If you're writing for a reader, I would suggest to you that having comments from trusted first readers can be really, really beneficial, because very often what we do when we write is we know the story that we're trying to tell. We know the world that we're trying to create. All of that exists in here already. So it's really difficult for us to judge whether we are communicating that effectively to a reader, because when we read back what we've written, we're reading it with all of that understanding of what we were trying to convey and all of that understanding of what we meant to say or what we imagine we said or what we hope we said. So having someone look at it who doesn't have all of that baggage is potentially hugely beneficial, because that what they're able to tell you is, does the thing that I'm picturing in here communicate to a reader? So that's the first question I'd ask, is who are you writing for? If you're writing wholly for yourself, then absolutely it never needs to go anywhere near an editor or an agent. And if it does go anywhere near an editor or an agent, you are at liberty to go meh, no to anything they suggest. At that point, they may go, well, if you're just writing this for you, why are we publishing it? And that is a legitimate thing for them to say. Both of those are perfectly fair positions. If you're writing for a reader, if you want to communicate what's in your mind to someone else, then having someone else look at it and give you an external view on how effectively you've done that can be really beneficial. There's also, I think, underpinning this question sometimes a little bit of a misconception or a misunderstanding or a fear about what editors do. I'm about to start coughing again, another water break. Wait there, don't go anywhere. Good. Okay, where were we? Yes, there can be a misconception or a misunderstanding about what editors actually do. Now, obviously, like any profession, there are really brilliant editors and there are really terrible editors, and there are all points in between. So I'm talking about how an editor-author relationship should work, or ideally works here. And ideally, an editor-author relationship is a collaboration. It's a partnership. So we're not talking about a situation where an editor comes in and says, change that, change that, change that, or where an editor comes in and says, I have changed all of these things, and as the author you just go, okay. We're talking about a situation where an editor is asking you questions or making suggestions, and those suggestions can be quite broad. They're often things like, we'd like to see a bit more of this relationship nearer the start of the book. I don't feel like we get to know this character deeply enough in the early part of the novel. I feel like the ending is a little bit rushed and the reader doesn't quite get a chance to understand what's happening. So they can be quite kind of broad suggestions like that. And editors will sometimes make suggestions for how to fix those things, but they are just suggestions. I've never in 10 books had a situation where an editor objected to me coming up with a different solution. And you nearly always do come up with a different solution, because what I find often is that that editor, that external reader, is really good at identifying issues, but they're not inside your head, they're not inside your writer brain, they're not inside the world of the story in the way that you are. So their suggested solutions quite often just don't quite sit right, and you come up with something better, or something that fits better in the world of the story or works better for those characters. And that's absolutely fine. That is how a functioning, healthy editor-author relationship works. It's not a question of them wading in their size 10 boots and stamping all over your delicate little story. It's a question of them looking at what you're trying to create and offering insights into how you might make that thing you're trying to create work better for a reader, how you might communicate the idea and the pictures that are in your head to your reader more effectively. So you should both be on the same team. This isn't or shouldn't be a confrontational process. This should be a collaborative process where you're both working towards the same goal of telling this story that you have created to a reader as effectively and as engagingly as possible. The other thing to think about, if you want to be published, but you know that you're going to struggle with editorial input, you're going to struggle with having someone saying, actually, no, I do want you to address this, is to consider whether you're going to self-publish or go down a traditional publishing route. If you self-publish your novel, you have all the costs associated with production of the book. So if you choose to engage an editor, proofreading, formatting, printing if you go for print copies, cover design, promotion, marketing, all of that stuff falls to you, and you either have to do it yourself or pay someone to do it for you. And whether that is practical is going to depend on your time, money, resources, and what skills you have. But the big plus of self-publishing is that you retain total control over the product that you create. So even if you engage an editor, it's not quite the same as working with an editor at a publishing house, because you have the last word. Now, what I would say is, if you're engaging an editor with the intention of ignoring what they're going to say, why are you bothering? You've got to go into that engagement, into that relationship with a positive attitude and with a collaborative attitude. Flipping over traditional publishing, ultimately, if you sell to a publisher the right to publish your novel in particular formats, particular languages, particular territories, for a particular period of time, they have the right to publish that novel. Now, a good publisher, if you are working with them effectively and not being kind of purposefully obtrusive, generally speaking, a good publisher won't put out a book that you are really unhappy with, because that process should be collaborative. But I can't tell you that that never happens. I can't tell you that there aren't books out there that the author is secretly or quietly to their author friends going, I can't believe they changed that, I hate the ending, I can't believe they did that, I can't believe they took that timeline out, whatever it might be. It's unusual, but it totally happens. And that is the risk you run with traditional publishing. If that collaborative relationship doesn't work in the way that it should, if the publishing house's idea of where in this market this book sits and what it should be doesn't quite fit with yours, you can get into a situation where you're having changes imposed on you. Like I say, not the norm. You would hope that in a good editor-author relationship you'll be able to work that out and talk about that and come up with something that worked for everybody. But yeah, it does happen. So that is my kind of long form answer to the question. My friend wants to write, but they don't like having to explain themselves to people, and if they have an agent ready to ask him to clarify something in their manuscript or change anything, then they feel like they shouldn't have to do it, because at the end of the day it's their story. What advice would you give? It's my slightly longer form answer. My short form answer comes back to that very first question. Who are you writing for? If you're writing for a reader, then ultimately other people's input is so valuable. You don't have to take it all word for word as gospel as they say it to you, but if people are highlighting difficulties, it is a little bit obtuse, possibly a little bit arrogant to not take that on board as ways that you could tell your story more effectively. So those are my thoughts on that question. If you do have questions about writing or publishing, please pop them in the comments. I'm really happy to answer them. I'd love to do some more videos like this. Before I go though, I have one very exciting bit of news. Coming up this autumn, I am doing a whole series of online workshops. So these are small group workshops conducted online, probably on Zoom, and they're every Tuesday evening. Well, Tuesday evening in the UK, Tuesday morning or afternoon if you're in the US, Lord knows what time if you're in Australia or New Zealand. I could do the whole globe by this system, but you know, a Tuesday evening in the UK, you have Google, you can work that out. They are open to anyone who is at any stage of writing a novel. You can be already published, you can be literally just thinking of your very first idea and wondering if you want to dip a toe in the water. You can find out all the details of those. They cover everything from creating a plot idea, creating characters, right through to the kind of business end of publishing, working with an agent and that kind of thing. Covers the whole gamut. If you sign up for them all, you will have a fairly comprehensive novel writing course right there, or you can just pick a mix and dip into the ones that would suit you. If you are interested in those, I'll put all the details of where you can sign up down below, and if you just pop in on your booking form in the section where it asks you if you need any particular assistance, so if you have any special needs, if you pop in there that you saw the details of these courses on my YouTube channel, I will give you 10% off the price of whatever you sign up for. So do take a look at those, and I will be back next week with something new and exciting and writing and publishing related. Farewell.